Hi, I'm Laura Cruzcolon, and I welcome you to Hope in the Bible. As always, I'd like to reiterate that this is not a Bible study show. This is a show about the opportunity to share the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. The aim is to give real-life testimony about what Hope in the Bible has done for me since I started my walk with the Lord, as well as what it's done in the life of invited guests who join me. Just as important, I want you to know that this hope, the hope of eternal life, can do the same for you, regardless of what or whatever circumstance you may be dealing with right now. So if you choose to listen, listen carefully, because this is no joke. This is very real. Now, in the past, I've been joined by many guests from all walks of life, all very special in their own unique way. And they came to give their testimonies in that hope that it would help someone, anyone, or anybody's for that matter. And honestly, every one of these testimonies have been real, sincere, and from the heart. Right now, it is my great privilege for me to welcome Pastor Hank from St. John's Lutheran Church right here in Mamaroneck, New York.
Thank you.
Very welcome, Pastor Hank. And I want you to know that Pastor Hank and I mutually agreed to discuss the topic of faith in general. However, in as much as we both agreed on this topic, I totally believe that, as always, it was inspired by the Holy Spirit. Now, as I pondered on the subject matter, I realized that faith has been undermined. For in as much as some people really feel that that they live by faith, okay, it really is determined by the circumstance they find themselves in. Now, to me, faith is more than a tool. It's more like a tool, or more so a weapon, and it should be consistently used. For without faith, there is no hope, and without hope, there is no salvation. And I know that there is hope because of what Jesus Christ did for us. Pastor Hank, I'm so excited to have you here on my show. And today, I honestly believe that, that this is an opportunity to let people know out here, the listeners, the viewers, that testimonies are not only about common folk, but that the people who are in the lifestyle that you have chosen to be in, okay, by obedience to God, that you too have a testimony. And I would like to know a little bit, I would like my viewers to know a little bit about you today before we start on our subject matter. So, for instance, one of the things that I'm interested in finding out is how, when did you start your walk with the Lord? I know that you've been the pastor of St. John's for, let's say since 1978, which is about 41 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh, gosh, it sure does. Because I know that I've been walking and I've been in my walk for over 30 years, and I have such a long way to go, okay, but I'm still walking. So, and was this a call you got early in your life?
Yes, it was a call I got early in my life. And to me, let's just begin like saying faith is a mystery.
Okay.
As the early disciples of Jesus said, why does this person believe and why doesn't that person believe?
Right.
And we don't know why certain people believe and why they don't.
Right.
For me, faith is a gift.
Okay.
In other words, we don't know. It's the Spirit, God's Spirit, and the Holy Spirit entering in some situations, and somehow you find yourself stepping inside the circle of faith.
Right.
You may have been outside the circle of faith. You may have been St. Paul fighting faith,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes you step into that circle of faith and things start to come together for you. But my feelings about this began when I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about this the other day. I was in a kindergarten class in a parochial school, a Lutheran school in Des Plaines, Illinois, and I was listening to these stories. And the stories came over and over to me again. And they sort of impacted me. And then there was this old grouchy pastor who was 6 foot tall, and he commanded the respect of everyone back then. And in fact, when he was on the street, coming down the street to visit people from the church on the street, they would say, "Pastor Fetter's coming, clean up the house, he's going to be here soon." But when I was in 2nd grade, something happened to me when the teacher said, "Let's go around and ask, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I had gone to church with my parents, not regularly. In fact, I could tell you a funny story about what happened to me, but they came to me, and it was a choice between being a minister and a farmer.
Okay.
And I was afraid to say I was going to be a minister. I thought everybody would laugh at me. And so anyhow, if I would have become a farmer, it would have been a disaster, a complete disaster. And I told my mother, and my mother never forgot the fact that I had told her I wanted to be this. And but it kept on going, and finally it came to the fact that we moved to California, and I had a choice to go to a prep school called Concordia, a Lutheran school, a Lutheran high school, which would meant I had to go away from home. And I didn't really want to do it, and my mother kind of pushed me. My father didn't care so much. He said, let him choose his own way. Finally, I took that leap. Maybe you could call it a leap of faith, as they coined it. And I went to school there. And I began the journey and kept on going in this parochial school and then on to university and on to seminary. So it was a journey, though, that was more along the lines of a pendulum. In other words, sometimes you're swinging forward and you're swinging high. And when the pendulum goes back, you thought, what am I doing here? I'm lost. Sometimes I recall being on a plane once and I'm saying, I just don't know if I can believe this stuff anymore. Then all of a sudden we hit turbulence. And all of a sudden I start to reconsider everything. I said, well, maybe there's more to this. And faith is a struggle. It's a journey. And as my supervisor once gave me a picture, and the picture had just footprints going into the scenery and into the hill, and it said, better to have journeyed than to have arrived. And that's the thing. When you feel you've arrived, you may have lost your faith. The journey of faith, it must include doubt. It must include mystery. It must include the kind of awe that you have something that's precious and something you don't want to lose and something that helps you. And you don't know when it's going to help you or not help you. Sometimes you take it for granted. Sometimes you feel it's lost. Am I talking too long?
No, you're talking just fine.
Sometimes you feel it's lost. But to me, you may lose your faith in a sense or feel you lost your faith, but it's sort of like losing your keys in the house. You look around, you look around, you look around, or trying to searching for a light switch in the dark, and finally you hit it, and it goes on.
It goes on.
And so sometimes you may feel without it. Sometimes you may feel lost. Sometimes you may feel the questions are overwhelming. Sometimes you have to love the questions more than the answers. And that's all part of the struggle, and that's an alive faith. In other words, what the world wants now is certainty. They want to be certain. They want to know everything for sure. Faith doesn't give you that. Faith tells you, as Luther would say, trust. Trust was his favorite word. You must trust. Build your life on it and see where it will take you. And that's really kind of where faith begins for me.
Well, the part that you said about certainty, okay, it's so ironic because there is certainty, okay, and the certainty is that there is none, okay? And people just don't get it, okay? It seems like people don't understand, well, for those of us who do believe, I guess we do understand that, like you say, faith is what we have to go by, and faith is the hope of things not seen.
Right, you're quoting Hebrews to me.
Yes,
The book
Hebrews
of Hebrews.
11:1, yes, okay. But that's so true. I mean, if either we're going to believe or not believe, and God gives us that choice. He gives us that freedom to choose whether to believe him or not. And I think that before I made the decision to go all the way with him, I was in the in-between stage. And then I realized one day, after I had made the commitment, when I crossed over, I'm going to say, that God doesn't like lukewarm. Either he'll accept you not believing him, but he will not accept you believing him sometimes and sometimes not. And even though we do struggle, because at times I have said to myself, am I really, 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 really believing this God? How is it that, you know, I still struggle with certain worldly things? But now I understand that that is part, like you say, it is part of the struggle. But we just have to maintain that faith. We have to, I guess, one of the things that I've come to understand is that I have to keep my eyes on Jesus, because he's the main man for me. He's the main man. He's the one that, you know, you can't get to God unless you go through Jesus Christ.
Well, let me hop on that for a little bit.
Okay, and you may.
Of course, we're about Jesus.
Right.
Jesus is what the Christian faith centers itself around. But Jesus talked about faith in many different ways. For example, faith as small as a mustard seed can get you through the day. You can move mountains. Of course, it may be hyperbole, you know, figuratively, but you can with a small amount of faith. We don't need huge amounts of faith, and that's a good sign. I feel that's a very hopeful sign. Hey, what are we praying for? A lot of, you know, the disciple said, Lord, after he tells them, you must forgive 70 times 7. You must do this. And they say, Lord, increase our faith. We can't do this. And so the thing is that faith is all about, I think, a little faith can be just enough. I mean, it's a great faith. You know, Jesus would say, I've not seen a faith like this in all of Israel. And it may be the woman who is begging for the crumbs from the table. Right. Or someone who just wants to touch his cloak, or someone who wants to wash his feet in perfume, and all of a sudden he announces there's faith here. There's a great amount of faith. And then the 12 who seem to be going, Jesus never went to seminary either, by the way, I want to tell you. So, but there's these people in the Jesus seminar, and I'm not talking about today, I'm talking about his disciples. 12 people that really come off kind of poorly in many of the Gospels because they don't seem to have the faith that Jesus is looking for. He's on a boat. They wake him up, help us. And says, where's your faith?
Yeah, oh, ye of little faith.
Yeah, oh, ye of little faith. And so little that he's upset with them, you know. Exactly. Must be less than a mustard seed, who knows? So we find ourselves in situations like that. And then all of a sudden, you can discover that there was more faith there than you thought. And that only comes when you come through the fires and trials of what it means to be a person and to suffer. And all of us have our own special suffering journey that we go through.
Oh, yes.
When my brother and my father died within a week of each other,
oh my gosh,
I felt I was in free fall. I really did. I was so sad and I was upset, and the loss and the grieving that, well, everybody goes through something like that to a degree, but I felt I was in free fall. And all of a sudden, I realized that my faith broke that fall. My faith was able to stop me from crashing. And but I didn't, you know, sometimes you don't know it's there until it shows up. Right. You know. And,
absolutely.
And you can have a faith that needs to be exercised. I can recall visiting people in the hospital when I was taking clinical pastoral education. And I said, what am I going to say to this person who's dying? Or what am I going to say to this person who's really sick and facing a crisis operation? And all of a sudden I realized that someone said, well, listen, go in there and pretend you have faith. I said, what? Pretend I have faith?
I've never heard that.
That must be crazy.
I've never heard that.
And he says, if you go in and pretend you have it, maybe you'll find it. And you know what? I walked in there, I said, okay, I'm going to pretend I know what I'm doing here. And I walked in there and I dealt with the situation. Right. If I would have ran away from it, I would have had no faith at all. You would have missed the opportunity. But I had enough faith to walk forward into the storm, into the problem, into the questions that I didn't know I could answer, and I was afraid to even face them. And once I faced them, I found what I needed to discover what the answer might be, or what the response needs to be. We don't always have answers. We only have sometimes a response, you know. And the Christian response is always that of redemption, redemptive life. You can start again. There's hope here. Yes. It's only the end of the road if you can't meet the bend in the road. And faith helps us make those tough turns in life. And faith, curves. Yeah, the curves. Faith puts us on the road, and hope keeps us there. And this is sort of what, in a certain sense, that faith means to me. And some days I feel like I don't have much faith at all. Sometimes I feel like, and then other days I feel like this all makes sense. This is all perfect. This is great. There's joy. there's wonder. There's oh, I'm glad. I'm so glad that I'm grabbing on to the cross. I'm grabbing on to the
promise,
to the history, to the promise. Yes,
the promise.
Promise is great.
The promise. I mean,
Good word.
I mean, God has given us so many promises that just when I think about those promises, especially when I'm down low and in my faith, okay, because it happens to all of us. I mean, people who are not that they're not Christians, because I believe that there are people who know about God and they know about Christ, but they deal with Him on their terms, so they don't understand that to establish a relationship with God, you first have to be submissive to His terms. Okay.
We all want the world on our terms.
Right.
In other words, everybody wants to have a life this way. We want it all to work out. We make plans, God laughs.
I know.
And so that's kind of the story, and when it comes to this idea, and I think when you said earlier about commitment, the thing is that there's a lot of people I know who are, as Kierkegaard would say, flirting with faith. They're flirting with it. They're not going to make a commitment.
Right.
They're not going to. It's like circling the airport forever and never touching down.
Right.
But if you don't touch down, if you don't make that step, you're going to miss out.
Exactly.
In other words, faith, the benefits of faith are done in the trusting and in the letting go and in the reaching out.
Right.
And that's the secret of it. If you're going to look at it for a long time, circle around and never land, you're not going to discover the gifts of faith.
Right.
And St. Paul has a whole bunch of gifts,
Oh, yeah.
the gifts of the Spirit, which is really another way of saying the gifts of faith. Gentleness, kindness, all the way down the line. And so it's a wonderful litany of things that he says that will come to you when you enter through and open the door of faith.
And it's amazing because there are times when I have allowed God to totally take control of the situation. And there are times that I haven't. I mean, there are times when I've given Him something and I've taken it back. And that's when I've been struggling with my faith levels, okay? But when I have totally let go and let God do what He does, it's amazing. I mean, I myself have been so amazed by the blessings, because to me, the blessings that God has given me in my life are still so extraordinary. I just still marvel at everything that He's brought me through. And when I talk about blessings, I don't want nobody to misunderstand one thing. To me, blessings is not just that I got a new car today, or that I accomplished a task that I was doing that brought me a reward, okay? No, a blessing is when God brings me through circumstances such as when I lost my husband, when I lost my father, when I had two mothers, my biological mother and my stepmother, that God blessed us with. These were people that I truly loved. But the blessings for me was that I allowed God to help me through that process of loss, okay? And He blessed me with the gift of accepting His will, with the gift of allowing His peace, okay, to be the dominant force in my life. To me, that's a blessing. And a lot of people don't understand this, but yes, I'm happy when something good happens and I get rewarded, and when I receive something that I didn't expect. But I also look at the blessing that God has given me. Firstly, when I see this journey that I'm on, because life is a journey that only ends when you die, okay? And I may be wrong, and you can correct me, okay? But I see this journey as an opportunity to get ready for that final life, that eternal life that is promised to us with Jesus Christ. I may be wrong, but this is how I see it. And
I may be wrong, but I'm always right. Is that what you're trying to say?
no, I may be wrong, but in other people's conception of things, okay? But this is a journey. And what we do in this journey determines what our afterlife is going to be like. Okay.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, we have faith, and our faith carries us. You know, all of these people in the Bible were very human people.
Like us.
And they were failures in many ways.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but somehow they got themselves to the finish line. And they probably were totally unprepared for what was going to happen next. And as they opened the door and into another reality, which of course we talk about as eternity, and which is a mystery too, because we don't know exactly what it's about. We just have the promise we live by and the hope, the holy hope of the life after death. And so that's all part of it. That's all part of it. But faith to me is such a gift, and that can blossom. You know,
absolutely.
It blossoms like a flower and can grow. And faith has about three things to it. Let me just. One thing is. Faith has a feeling to it. You want to feel the sense of faith. You know, that somebody is with you, that there is a sense that you're being lifted, and that you're not alone in the world.
Be the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. And there's also the intellectual piece of it. Faith, as Anselm said, always seeks understanding. We don't understand, but we try to understand.
We try.
But when you walk inside the circle of faith, you can somehow discover a whole nother world of understanding that you didn't have when you're outside of that circle.
Right.
And so that's the experience we have of continuously learning and asking questions. Faith is not about blind faith. It's about seeking understanding and struggling with what those understandings are. And then faith is the will to faith. We want faith. So, you know, Kierkegaard would say, purity of heart is the will one thing. And we want to will. We want to have faith as much as we can. But we can't control it. See, the thing you were talking about was control. And it happens best when you give up control.
Okay.
But it's hard to give up control. I'm a control freak. Once somebody told me,
you could have fooled me.
I have to. I have to worry about it. But in fact, somebody said to me, it might have been my wife, you're trying to micromanage everything, Marv, or you're trying to macromanage it all the way down to the littlest thing, and you want to control that, but you can't. And there's a funny story about it. There's this guy on the edge of a cliff, and he begins to lose his stepping, and he falls down and he grabs on a plant. He grabs on a plant and he yells, "Help! Help! Help!" And someone says, "What do you want?" A voice out of nowhere says, "What do you want?" He says, "I want help. Can you help me?" "What should I do?" He says, and the voice says again, "Let go." He looks up, he says, "Is there anybody else up there?" And so God is telling us, hey, let go.
Let go. Let go and let God.
Yeah, let go and let God is a saying. And so you want to let go and allow things to happen for you. You know, when you control everything, it's actually not even that much fun.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I've learned that. I've learned that the hard way. But I want to go over a little bit about your church because, you know, I've had the opportunity to experience some of the activities that you engage in that gives back to this community, whether the people go to your church or not. And I understand you have a lot of other activities that go on. I know that you have Sunday services. Well, first of all, your church is located at 122?
122 Fenimore Road, the corner of Fenimore and Cortland.
Okay, 122, that's my birthday. Okay, and you do have your services on Sunday?
2 services on Sunday, 8:15, which is a spoken liturgy, and then 10:30, which is our regular, larger Eucharistic liturgy. And then we have adult forum for adults who want to come in. We read books and talk about it they're all books about faith and so forth. And then the other thing would be we have Sunday school and stuff.
Awesome, awesome. And all are welcomed, right?
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding?
Awesome.
We're an inclusive church. Everybody belongs at the table.
Okay. Well, this is the time where we start saying thank you to our listeners. So I do want to say, before I do that, I'd like to do a closing prayer, if it's okay with you.
Please.
Okay. So this is my prayer. And it's based on, I believe it's Psalms It's Psalms, not Psalms, I'm sorry, Hebrews 1:3, where it says he is the reflection of God's glory and the exact imprint of God's very being. And he sustains all things by his powerful word. God, you bless us with the gift of perseverance that keeps us upright in the face of all that threatens to topple us. You bless us with the gift of hope, which sustains our energy while we work to make real that which we are hoping for. You bless us with the gift of love, which buffers our hearts from all that could break them. You bless us with the gift of compassion, which enables us to shoulder one another's burdens and celebrate one another's joys. For sustaining your sustaining power, we offer our praise to you. Now, in her book, Glimpses of Grace, I don't know if you've ever read it, Madeline Engel says, faith is for that which lies on the other side of reason. Faith is what makes life bearable with all its tragedies and ambiguities and sudden startling joys. That's why it is so important to understand that faith is the hope that we have in the Bible. I'm Laura Cruzcolon, and I want to thank you for allowing me the time to share the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ with you. And I want to thank you, Pastor Hank, for giving of your time as well.
Thank you.
So bye for now, and remember that there is hope in the Bible.